Hey YouTube, welcome back to our channel. My name is Elena.
And I'm Bjorn.
And we are Viking Age reenactors and living historians here to talk with you about your favorite Viking shows.
So how we're running these videos right now is we're actually streaming them live and doing watch-alongs on Twitch. So you can follow us at the same name on Twitch there and see the live reactions. And then here we're doing summaries and just doing the main talking points. If you want to get in on the ground floor of our reactions, be sure to check us out soon on Twitch because we're really starting to pull ahead of what's getting released here. So if anybody wants to follow along, we're gonna be doing a huge jump pretty soon. So stay with it. In the meantime, we are taking a look at episode 5 of Vinland Saga.
So this basically sets up Thorfinn's overall story arc, I feel like. He's got to make something of himself and become a true Viking.
Yeah.
And then he can come back and avenge his father.
Yeah, exactly. I was curious if that was ever going to be a thing, too, because it's like, he hasn't ever done anything. You know, he has, like, absolutely no experience whatsoever. He has no prowess. He has no renown. Like, I was kind of expecting something like this to happen at some point. I just really wasn't sure how it was gonna happen, and it's especially weird that they're like almost agreeing to it, I guess. I expected much more of like a separation between the two, but they were like within an hour, just this like an hour's walk of each other pretty much at all times throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, but maybe Askeladd is also thinking about it in a way that Thorfinn will go off and probably die in battle somewhere, and he's never gonna have to hear from him again, or they are going to end up on like opposite sides of the world, and he's not going to have to deal with it later on. So he's like making this agreement, thinking that it's just never going to come to pass.
Yeah, absolutely. I just expected much more of like a revenge arc of like Thorfinn having to like track Askeladd down, you know, not like always having him in his sights and stuff. I mean, now we'll see, and he'll probably loop around and do his own thing, but like...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's going to have to hunt him down. This is based off actual stories, not in the Vinland sagas.
Yeah.
So in the Vinland sagas, we meet Thorfinn once he's actually grown. We don't hear about him as a child. In the Vinland sagas, we hear a little bit about, or read, I guess, a little bit about his journey to Finland, you know, his marriage and everything like that, but it's once he's actually fully grown. So this is something that is not in the sagas, at least when it comes to Thorfinn himself.
The
like
characters, some of the characters are based on the characters from the actual Vinland sagas. But like this story arc, no. I expected it to be based on the Vinland saga story arc, but they just took the characters and now they're running with it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how you want to think about it, because revenge killings were absolutely a thing in the sagas. But not with these specific characters. So
yeah,
they're not retelling a specific saga, but what they're doing is they're taking bits and pieces from different sagas. And since Thorfinn saw his father die, it happens multiple times in the sagas where the son will, you know, get revenge for his father or for his brother.
Yeah, usually they're of like fighting age already. So like usually they're already grown men and they just kind of do it within the next couple of days. But yeah, they're taking historical characters from Vinland Saga essentially, and then they're making their own historical fiction out of it, basically. And now we're really going to start to get to see the world, because now they're starting to branch out and do their thing. Some
of the things that we were noticing as we were watching it is some of the details that are going into the artwork itself, especially the depiction of the shields is actually really, really nice. I feel like it has, you know, the border around the shield, it has the actual shield, the patterning on the shields, for the most part, from what I could see, are historically sourced. You know, those crosses and the spiral patterns and everything.
Yeah, some of them were like a little bit off, but like they're still, I feel like they're still simple enough where even if we don't necessarily have any kind of like historic depiction of it, it's still absolutely believable and good enough, you know, like it doesn't have to be, we don't really have a lot of information on shield design specifically. You know, there's some depictions in like tapestries and certain things, or like descriptions in sagas and stuff, but we don't really have a huge amount to go on, so I'm not too worried about that as long as it's not like crazy, fanciful, and embellished, or like embossed in gold plating on the shield, or whatever iron borders and stuff. But yeah, everything seems to be like very like simplistic and like utilitarian, I guess, which is absolutely kind of the feel that you normally kind of go for with this kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But the edging of it was actually one of the things that I was going to call out, because in true fashion, the edging looks like it's made of metal. I don't know why this keeps happening. It happens in other TV shows as well. Generally, shields would have been edged with rawhide or leather. Lining it with metal, especially with the amount of rivets that they were showing there, would have been so heavy.
And it just isn't a good use of metal. You know, average household in the Viking Age had maybe like 5 or 10 pounds of metal or something like that. Something around, I can't remember the exact figures. And if you're gonna use metal like that thin, like flatten that thin around the shield, it's really not gonna do anything. It's gonna do all in terms of like defending you better or protecting the shield more. I don't know. It just seems like completely useless. And then the face of the shield was actually faced with like either a linen or even like a goat skin, and that would also help to not only absorb impact but also displace it, and create like a lighter blow and help preserve the shield as well. So a lot of the times the shield wasn't there just to like absorb impact and take a blow and get destroyed and stuff. It would be used to glance blows aside and have them skim off and have the shield last, essentially,
Yeah, and then the other thing that lining the shield with some kind of a material, it helped disguise which way the wood was going, the wood grain.
Yeah.
So that as somebody who had a sword or an axe and was trying to go for an attack, you wouldn't be able to tell which way the wood grain is going, so you would have a harder time trying to figure out how to split that shield.
Yeah, because if you can see the direction of the grain, then you can just cut along that edge and split it in half and make it completely useless and more unwieldable than anything else. So yeah, absolutely. That was definitely a side purpose or a dual purpose of facing or even painting the shield as well.
All right, so moving forward from that, a couple of other details that we noted. Of course, the detailing on the ships was great.
Yeah.
The candle that he had in his room was actually really interesting.
The lantern with the little wick, and it was feeding into the what I assume would be like fat or oil or something. Absolutely.
Yeah, because those like oil candles were actually a thing back then, and we used them when we were doing reenactment as well. You basically have this like little basin with that's filled with oil, and then you kind of coil the wick around inside and light that up, and it lasts for hours.
Yeah, absolutely.
It goes for like ever, I feel like.
Yeah, it really can. Unless it gets too far down the wick and then sets the whole thing on fire, and then you just have a really strong lantern for a shorter amount of time, which also happened to us, which is great. But yeah, I mean, it's very pleasant just to have somebody put in the detail to not just like throw a candle or a torch or even just like a whatever fireplace. Like they actually had a proper setup as a lantern and like invested in like figuring out how that lantern would look and everything too. I appreciate that. We got to see some cool recreational activities. We got to see her taking care of animals and throw in. It looked like peat, but I'm pretty sure it was sheep shit, which can be used as fuel for a fire when she was at home, because that's why she was like, oh, I forgot about the sheep, because she threw sheep shit on the fire.
Right.
So I was like,
and then she remembered about the actual sheep.
You're burning poop. Which, hey man, life in Iceland is hard. We got to see that cool upright loom and her doing the fabric. We got to see her just randomly go out whaling.
Yeah, whaling was something that was practiced in Iceland and Greenland and Faroes. Still practiced in the Faroes, actually. It's just part of their culture and probably never going away at this point. But yeah, no, it's actually really cool to see. And the reason why I always light up about the loom, we saw it in the first episode, I feel like, or the second one, and we saw it here now. And it's just such a cool little detail to see, because Women back in those ages would spend their days basically making things like that and doing those things. I mean, aside from, you know, taking care of animals and everything like that, women were basically the housekeepers, and they would be making the clothing. And so much time and so much effort goes into making clothing, whether it's wool or linen. I'm assuming since they're in Iceland, this would have been wool from the sheep.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been mostly wool anyways. Linen was a harder commodity to come by.
That's true. They
and
had
it was
to
a lot
grow
harder.
it.
Yeah, it was a lot harder to process and everything too. It's such like a focal point that we even have of just a chore to do around the house. That there's actual artistic depictions of women in medieval ages walking around with a spindle like in their waist belts, because they basically, like, as they're going around doing other chores or like talking to people, they'd always have like linen, not linen, but like linen or wool or something like on their hip with the spindle, so whenever they'd like stop and have a minute, they just spin a little bit as they go.
Yeah,
all
making
day
thread.
long, literally all day long, because it's like a constant thing that you have to be doing.
Exactly.
It's absurd.
Yeah, because you needed so much thread, and then you straight it up onto the loom, and you would have those like weights at the bottom that would keep everything taut and nice and neat.
The warp weights.
And then you would weave your fabric out of that, and then make your clothing.
Yeah, exactly. And also, just again, cool that they even included the warp weights and like the proper structure and design of the loom itself as well. It's just it's great to see like a show incorporate this much detail into it, and I'm really happy about it.
So a couple of cultural things. Not stabbing the sleeping man. The whole concept of honor and not and actually like facing your opponent when you kill them or try to kill them instead of just sneak up on them while they're sleeping and stab them in the back. Absolutely a thing, culturally speaking. During the Viking Age, that would have been very frowned down upon. And like we were saying last week, in terms of how they killed the father, it was not honorable the way that they went about it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it didn't happen.
Truth.
It doesn't necessarily mean that people didn't do it, but
the reason honor exists is because there were honorable people and there were dishonorable people. So they were all spanning across the gambit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I did find it really interesting that they are trying to set up Thorfinn to be this very honorable person, because that's how they set up his father. His father was the honorable one. He's the one that basically left, to take care of his family and everything like that, or he was trying to do the honorable thing basically from the very beginning, even down to his final scene. He was trying to be the honorable one in the situation. And you can tell that Thorfinn is trying to do the same thing. He's trying to be honorable. So even when he has a chance to avenge his father, he can tell that that is the wrong way to go about it. So he waits for a better opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
Even if it means he's facing a very uphill battle to get it done.
Which is very interesting, because like some of his father's last words to him were basically like, a true warrior doesn't need a sword. Which is like, eventually I'm sure this is going to be not only like a whole story about revenge, but also redemption and like forgiveness too. I'm sure we're going to get into that. But I do find it interesting that like he's trying to live by this honorable code set up for him by witnessing his father's death, and go about it in like this typical warrior Viking honor-bound way, without realizing that if he's trying to live by this code set in place by his father, then he shouldn't be fighting at all, because that's what his father would want from him. His father didn't want to be a warrior. His father didn't want to spill blood or kill people. And that's all that this kid is focused on, is just killing this person to avenge his father. The concept of what was honorable and what wasn't honorable is vastly different from what we would kind of think, too. The main kind of thing that I always point to is, as an example, in Egil's saga. Egil's one of like the most well-known sagas of the Icelanders out there. It's incredibly popular. It's like the very first one that you read in the Icelander saga. But he's actually on a raid, and him and his friends get captured and like tied up and held for probably ransom or murder or something. Doesn't matter. But their captors are basically like partying for a night, because they're like, yeah, we repelled the Vikings and we got them all and it's awesome. And then one of their friends comes and like rescues them by like breaking in and setting them free. And then Egil and the Vikings go and like steal their loot and run back to the boat to like escape in the middle of the night with all their loot. And Egil like gets to the boat and stops, and he's like, man, this isn't right. This is cowardly. We can't just turn around and steal their stuff and run away from them. So he goes back, barricades all the doors except for one in their house, sets the thing on fire, and then as everybody starts running out, he just starts like shouting and declaring himself so that everybody knows him, and then killing them as they run out. And like in the Viking, like in that Nordic mindset, that was an honorable action because you like went back and announced yourself and gave them an opportunity to fight, sort of.
Instead of just escaping.
Yeah, instead of just running away with all of their stuff. So, like, the whole concept of what we would consider honorable and what they would consider honorable is totally skewed.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah, even Thors as a character, we see him as being very honorable because he's kind of like a pacifist a little bit. You know, he doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to spill blood. And ultimately, he kind of doesn't. Like, he never drew a drop of blood, I don't think, even fighting Askeladd. And that was always, I mean, that's something that as we're watching, we're like, oh man, this dude is such a bad, like he's very tough, he's very physical, he's a force to be reckoned with, but he doesn't want to fight or cause any harm. And in the Viking Age, somebody like that would have been seen as a coward, essentially. You know, like, yeah, big and strong control, absolutely, but passive.
I mean,
and like gentle,
the thing that I would just kind of like remember about his character is that he was like that though.
Yeah.
Before he had his first daughter, he was part of Jomsvikings. That's his whole history. So he did go out, he did pillage, he did kill, he did all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then he had his children, and then he didn't want to do that anymore. And that's part of the reason why that is the reason why they wanted to kill him in the first place.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, no, I mean, we're talking about the Viking Code of Honor. You can't really use modern day as your base point because modern day honor and Viking Age day honor are two completely separate things.
Yeah.
The difference between, murder and a killing had to do with whether you announced it or not. You could literally kill your neighbor and then walk over to the next house over and say, hey, I killed this person, and then it'd be like, okay. like
I mean, generally, yeah.
If you didn't
exactly,
announce
though.
it, then it became a big issue.
Yeah, the law code stipulated that you could walk by 2 houses, but not a third after you killed somebody before you had to announce it. If you walked by a third house without telling one of those inhabitants that you killed this person, then it was considered a murder. And you would have been outlawed and exiled and driven away and possibly killed as retaliation. But if you did stop and say, hey, I just killed this person, go check on their body, kind of thing, then it would only be a slaying, at which point you only have to pay a weregeld for them,
to
and
their family,
then possibly risk being killed as part of a feud.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's neither here nor there. So, it's all kinds of degrees of variation, I guess, that we have to kind of take into account and consider. And even building off of my own point and arguing what I even said, in that same strain of thought, Thors, while he could have also been seen as a coward, might have also been seen as kind of a hero, because even though he didn't like go out looking for a fight or anything, he didn't shy away from battle. Like, he still agreed readily to enter into warfare and to do all these things, and he like fought 30 dudes on his own and beat them. So like, he's still confrontational, and who's to say?
Whole thing.
That
does lead me into the final point. The expectation of Askeladd to fight this little kid who has called basically for a holmgang.
Yeah.
They're not calling it a holmgang here, but like we said last week, that's
but it's
basically what he's
it's
asking
a
for.
holmgang.
Yeah, it's a one-on-one fight.
Call a spade a spade.
Yeah, it's a one-on-one fight. I want to kill you.
It's an honor duel that they're
unless you
both
kill me.
swearing to, like, under Odin as a witness, essentially. Like,
Exactly. And one of Askeladd's guys says, well, a leader has to fulfill his expectations. And that's absolutely true. It goes back to, jarls and kings and everything like that. They only ruled as long as they could maintain the respect of their people. Their people knew that, their jarl could lead them or their king could lead them. If there was if people started thinking that there was somebody in the village that was better off being the Jarl, they could absolutely be overthrown.
Yeah.
So
And then a new ruling line would have been put in place from there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there were ruling lines, you know, sons ascended to Jarldom and everything like that, but they had to take charge. They had to earn the respect of the peers. And I did find it really, really interesting that one of Askeladd's men actually says something like that. Well, you got to go up there and you got to do this because you've been challenged to Holmgang. It's dishonorable to not accept a challenge like that, even if it's against a kid.
Yeah, and that's also kind of where the question arises too, of like how seriously would they have taken it. Even, you know, anybody could swear or could challenge somebody to like an honor duel, but like what level of severity is it if like a child challenges like their father, you know, like just because he's grumpy because the dad won't let him stay up late and he's like what, and throws a tantrum, and then challenges his dad to an honor duel, who just goes shut up and go to bed, you know. Like it's almost, I almost feel like it's kind of that, where it's like, you don't know what you're talking about, kid, let me show you how wrong you are, kind of thing.
I think it's I think what it is it's a difference between that and being called out in front of all of your men.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the main difference, because there's so many witnesses to it. They're just like, well, you got to do it now.
Yeah.
It's not just you and him.
Yeah, exactly. That's, no matter what, somebody's got to deal with this kid. And the person dealing with this kid, whether it's by honor duel or by just kicking his away from us, it's got to be you.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified of our future videos. And we'll see you in the next one.